Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today is day 3 of my MLB player rankings for 2023. This is Coast to Coast Sports. If you like what you're seeing, make sure you follow us on social media, subscribe to the channel, and like the video for more content just like this. So today we're going over every single starting first baseman in 2023, number 1 through number 30. We're going to start with number 30, and I will reveal it in 3, 2, 1. Number 30, we have Nolan Schanuel of the Los Angeles Angels. Nolan Schanuel is one of those guys who nobody really thought he was going to be in the major leagues. Why did we not think he was going to be in the major leagues? Because he wasn't even drafted until June. Nolan Schanuel did something that nobody does. He came up in the middle of the season and was a starting first baseman for his team. Now, the Angels were kind of desperate for offense, and he did deliver somewhat. He ends up hitting 275 with a 402 on base percentage, a 330 slugging, and a 732 OPS. So Nolan Schanuel had himself a really nice season. However, the reason why I'm ranking him at number 30 is because he only played in 29 games. It was a really, really small sample size. He's also really, really young, 21 years old. Defense is still improving, and he does not have any pop in his bat. Only 1 home run, so that's something he's going to need to work on. Still, in 100 at-bats, he had a really, really nice season. So Nolan Schanuel coming in at number 30. Next up, at number 29, we have the Philadelphia Phillies first baseman Cody Clemens. So Cody Clemens, what's interesting about him, he actually didn't start the most games for the Phillies at first base. But Alec Bohm is, I'm gonna use Alec Bohm for my third baseman video, and I'm using Bryce Harper for my DH video. So I needed somebody to put in for the Phillies, and I went with Cody Clemens. Cody Clemens, 47 games, 148 plate appearances. He ends up hitting 230 with a 277 on base, 367 slugging, good for a 75 OPS plus, 4 homers, 7 doubles, and he ends up with 13 runs batted in, 15 runs scored. Not a very good season out of him. Defensively, he is fine, but yeah, he's not really a starter. I couldn't put Alec Bohm or Bryce Harper in this video because they're already going to be in the DH and third base categories. So Cody Clemens, by default, gets to be the Phillies' first baseman for this video. And coming in at number 28, we have the Chicago Cubs first baseman Trey Mancini. Mancini, again, he didn't play the most games at first base for the Cubs. That would be Cody Bellinger, but Cody Bellinger, I have him in my center field video. Trey Mancini was the kind of in a platoon with Bellinger. He ends up playing half the games, 235 at-bats, not very much. And in those 235 at-bats, he just didn't do very much. He hit 234, 299 on base, 336 slugging, but it was just very much an average season. 12 doubles, 4 homers, 28 runs batted in, 31 runs scored, and he strikes out 78 times in 79 games, so he averages about a strikeout per game. That's not great. Trey Mancini, he's probably fallen off from the player who he was in Baltimore. In Baltimore, he was a guy who was, a very consistent, reliable starting first baseman, and now he has kind of turned into a player who I'm not sure if he's going to get a job. The Reds did sign him, so he's going to compete for a roster spot in Cincinnati. Number 27, having a huge fall off from last season, Yuli Gurriel. Yuli Gurriel, similar to Trey Mancini, for a long time, Yuli Gurriel was one of the best first basemen in the league, but last year, he just was not very good. 108 games, 245 batting average, 304 on base, 359 slugging, good for a 663 OPS. 663 OPS, that is actually higher than his 2022 average, but it's the second lowest of his career, so not very good stuff from Yuli Gurriel. He hits just 4 home runs. That's a career low. 16 doubles. That's also a career low, excluding 2020. 27 runs batted in. That's also a career low, excluding 2020. So, yeah, just not a very good season from Yuli Gurriel. He was kind of a platoon with Garrett Cooper for most of the season, and then they traded Garrett Cooper away, so he got to play more in the second half of the year, and he just was not very good. I do not expect him to be, again, starting for them next season. He's getting up there in age. I believe he's like 36 already. So yeah, Yuli Gurriel, he's my number 26. Excuse me, no, now it's 27. This is 26. Number 26, Elehuris Montero of the Colorado Rockies. Elehuris Montero, he's a third baseman by trade, but he ends up being the Rockies' starting first baseman last season. 85 games, 284 at-bats, so he didn't play a whole lot, but when he did play, he was decent. It's 243, 426 slugging with those 11 home runs, 15 doubles. And granted, the power numbers, you know they're going to be skewed because he is playing in Coors half of his game. So 11 home runs in Coors, probably more like 7 home runs in most other teams. But he gets with a 716 OPS. So again, you're looking at a guy who, take it with a grain of salt, he only played half the season and he's in Coors, but offensively, Elahuris Montero was okay. Career 711 OPS. He's right on the mark there. And he's young enough that he could continue to improve. He's only 25 years old. And coming in at number 25, Kansas City Royals, Nick Pratto. Nick Pratto, he was not supposed to be the Royals' first baseman. It was obviously supposed to be Vinny Pasquantino. And Vinny Pasquantino ends up getting injured and missing most of the season. So Nick Pratto, in his backup roles, he stepped it up last year. It's 232, 307 on base, 353 slugging, and yeah, he had a solid season. 16 doubles, 7 home runs, 35 runs batted in, 33 runs scored, and played 95 games, gets with 306 at bats. So he, the volume for him was a lot more than anyone would have expected Nick Pratto to be playing, and he ends up putting together a pretty nice season, all things considered. Again, 25 years old, he could improve. We'll see if he makes the team or in what role they decide to give him next year if Vinny Pasquantino is healthy. Coming in at number 24, have the Milwaukee Brewers first baseman, Rowdy Tellez. Rowdy Tellez, he's a guy who, he's been a journeyman throughout most of his career, played for the Blue Jays. I believe he's played for the, now he's on the Pirates. I guess he's really only played for the Blue Jays and the Brewers. Last season with the Brewers, 106 games, 311 at-bats, and he was fine. 13 home runs, 9 doubles, 215 batting average, 376 slugging. It was very, very much not the same player that he was in 2022 when he hit 35 home runs. Last season, only 13 home runs. He did miss some time with injuries. He did also lose out on some playing time to Carlos Santana, who the Brewers traded for at the trade deadline. So Rowdy Tellez, he comes in at number 24, just not a very good season out of him. The Brewers, I think, expected a lot more coming out of him after that monster 2022 when he hit 35 homers, and he just was not the same player in 2023. Coming in at number 23, New York Yankees first baseman Anthony Rizzo. Now, Anthony Rizzo got off to a really, really hot start. He actually was a favored to make the All-Star game. He was so good in April, but then in May, he started to cool off. In June, he entered a slump, and by July, he was out for the season. Ends up playing 99 games, 373 at-bats, and his numbers are pretty underwhelming, especially for Anthony Rizzo. 12 home runs, that's the lowest in any season of his career, excluding 2020. 14 doubles, again, career low. Just 45 runs scored, also career low. 41 runs batted in, also a career low. He hits 244, which is not a career low, but it's among his worst seasons from batting average perspective. 328 on base percentage, that was a career low because he only walked 35 times. Anthony Rizzo has been an on-base machine throughout his career. That's one of the reasons why he has been such a good first baseman. And his on-base percentage has never been below 340 until 2022, 2023. It got even worse, down to 328. His OPS of 706, that was a career low. So again, when your career low OPS is 706, you must be doing something right, because most players, 706 is a really solid OPS. Anthony Rizzo, that was his career low. He's obviously is hoping for a bounce back season, but you have to start wondering, he's 34, he's going to be 35 next season. Is a bounce back season realistic for Anthony Rizzo, or is this the player he is now, in which case he's not going to be a starter for much longer? Coming in at number 22, the San Francisco Giants first baseman, Donovan Solano. Donovan Solano, well, actually, he was on the Twins last year, so I'm not sure why I have a picture of him with the Giants. But Donovan Solano, for the Minnesota Twins, he used to be on the Giants. For the Twins last year, though, Donovan Solano was pretty nice. He hits 282, 369 slugging, 760 OPS, 38 runs batted in, 26 doubles, 5 home runs, 43 runs scored, and he plays 134 games. Donovan Solano, very good player. Defensively, he's decent. And he's always kind of been this guy he's able to provide a lot of value to whatever team he's on. So Donovan Solano, nice season, almost cracked the top 20. And we move on to number 21, barely missing out on the top 20. It's the San Diego Padres, Jake Cronenworth. Jake Cronenworth was an all-star second baseman back-to-back seasons. The Padres thought they should move him to first to make room for Xander Bogaerts in the infield. That move did not work out well for Jake Cronenworth. Defensively, he's one of the best defensive first basemen in the league. You would hope he would be, coming from a second base background. But offensively, Jake Cronenworth had his worst season of his career. Only plays in 127 games. He did get injured at one point. 458 at-bats. That's the lowest since his rookie season. And he winds up with very, very underwhelming stat line. 24 doubles, 10 home runs. He does hit 7 triples, which is really impressive. 48 runs batted in. That's the lowest of his career. 54 runs scored. Just a 229 batting average. That is by far a career low. 312 on base, another career low. 378 slugging, another career low. Good for a 690 OPS, which is again a career low. So Jake Cronenworth, I wonder if he's going to bounce back next year. I'm not so sure that he will be able to, but I have him as my number 21 first baseman in 2023. Now we're into the top 20, and coming in at number 20 is the Washington Nationals' Dominic Smith. Dominic Smith, he had kind of a breakout season last year, if you want to say that. 254 batting average, 326 on base, 692 OPS. Hits 12 homers, 21 doubles, 46 runs batted in, and 57 runs scored. He played in 153 games. He was very durable. And yeah, the numbers, they don't jump out at you, especially from a first base perspective. You know, first basemen are kind of expected to be better offensively than other positions, just as a rule of being a first baseman. Dom Smith's numbers, they don't jump out off the page, but very solid statistical season for a guy who spent 6 years kind of middling around with the Mets, trying to compete for playing time, goes to the Nationals, and immediately, as their starter, has a very solid season. And coming in at number 19, the Baltimore Orioles' Ryan Mountcastle. Ryan Mountcastle, it's an interesting case because he's got a lot of power in that bat, but besides that power, he is honestly pretty average. And you look at it, only played 115 games. He was competing for playing time with Ryan O'Hearn. 423 at-bats, 64 runs scored, 21 doubles, 18 homers, 68 runs batted in, 37 walks. That was his career lowest. But he goes for a 270 batting average and a 328 on base, 452 slugging. Ryan Mountcastle's a good player. I think if he had played a little bit more, I probably would have rose him in the rankings. Obviously, these rankings are based mostly off production. So if you miss playing time because you're injured or because, you know, you're in a platoon, then I'm going to lower you. My logic in that is I'm not ranking how talented they are. I'm ranking how good their season was in 2023. And if you have to compete for playing time, if you're in a platoon, that means that the team clearly doesn't think that you are worth playing every day. So that might make your slash line look better, but it's going to deflate your production as far as counting stats like hits, runs, RBI, home runs. And those things are important as well. A lot of people like to discount those counting stats. Well, he had an 850 OPS. Well, if he's in a platoon, that means he's only getting at-bats in that the team thinks is favorable for him. So you would hope that a guy in a platoon would have a higher OPS than a guy who's not in a platoon. That's why platoons exist. Also, though, injuries are a thing. I understand injuries are a thing, and I am going to knock players for getting injured because part of having a good season is your durability. So Ryan Mountcastle, if he had played a full season, he'd probably be in the top 10, but he didn't. He only played 115 games, so I am going to dock him for that because a big part of first baseman is you're not meant to miss time. And that brings us to number 17. Is this number 17 or 18? I think this is number 18. Number 18, Lamont Wade Jr. from the San Francisco Giants, former outfielder, moves to first base last year, and he had a decent season, a 256 average, 373 on base, 417 slugging. He hit 17 home runs, and he had a very solid season. This guy, you know, he's competing for playing time with Donovan Solano there for a while and ends up having a really nice season for the Giants. So Lamont Wade Jr. coming in number 18, barely missing out on the kind of top half of the league. Looking at number 17 now, and it's the Houston Astros' Jose Abreu. Man, what a fall from grace for Jose Abreu. Still makes it into the top 20, but Jose Abreu, this was just not his type of season that we've come to expect from Jose Abreu. Over the years, he's been one of the most consistent players in all of baseball. Last season just was not it. 141 games, and that's actually, believe it or not, the second lowest in his career. Out in his 10 years career, only 2 seasons has he played less than 141 games, and one of those was the COVID year. Runs 62, career low. Doubles 23, career low. Home runs 18, not a career low actually. He did only hit 15 in 2022. He ends up hitting 237. That's easily the lowest of his career by far. By 30 points, it's the lowest of his career. 296 on base percentage. He's never had an on base percentage below 330, so that's a 34-point career low. 383 slugging. Again, never had a slugging below 440, and last year it was all the way down to 383. And his OPS, which had previously never been below 798. 798 was his previous career low. Last season, only a 679 OPS. He does get rewarded a little bit in my rankings because of his durability. He did play 141 games. He did still manage to knock in 90 runs batted in, so he was good when they needed him to be good. He was a lot better hitting with runners on base. That does play into these calculations. That does mean something. If you're able to produce with runners on base, 90 runs batted in is pretty impressive for a guy hitting with just a 679 OPS. But even still, I couldn't bring myself to put Jose Abreu into the top 15 this season for first base. I think he could bounce back next season. He's a candidate. Also, however, he's going to be 37 next season, so I'm not sure. Maybe he won't bounce back. Coming in at number 16, I've got the Oakland Athletics' Ryan Noda. Ryan Noda had a really compelling season last year. Ends up hitting 229 batting average, but a 364 on base. He is an on-base machine. 406 slugging, 16 homers, 22 doubles, 54 runs batted in, 63 runs scored. And if you're saying to yourself, who is this Ryan Noda guy? I've never heard of him. Well, you probably are saying that because he was a rookie last year, and he really, again, came out of nowhere. 27-year-old rookies usually don't have a 770 OPS with 16 homers, but Ryan Noda did that. He had a very good season. I thought he was even in consideration for an all-star appearance earlier in the season. It was between him and Brent Rooker for the A's lone all-star. They gave it to Rooker instead, but Ryan Noda, very solid season. And coming in at number 15, I have Josh Naylor of the Cleveland Guardians. Josh Naylor having a really nice season. He hit 308, 354 on base, and a 489 slugging. Good for an 843 OPS. The reason he's only at number 15 is, again, the volume, not exactly what you'd want to see from your starting first baseman. He only gets a 452 at-bats, so you want to see him get some more at-bats and really build on this. But, he has a lot of talent to build on. 17 homers, 31 doubles, 97 runs batted in, 52 runs scored. Those are all career high numbers for Josh Naylor. So really, really impressive season coming from Josh in 2023. I think he can build on that and be even better. He's only 27 next season, so he has a lot of room to improve still. And coming in at number 14. Number 14, the Chicago White Sox, Andrew Vaughn. Andrew Vaughn, he was one of the most hyped up prospects, and he is slowly but surely working his way up these first base rankings. Last year, he was about the 18th best. This year, he's up to 14th. He does play a career high 152 games. He's finally, he's no longer competing for playing time. For a while, he was competing, obviously, with Jose Abreu. He was playing some left field. Gavin Sheets was also in left field, so he was kind of struggling to find a spot. With Abreu gone, Andrew Vaughn slots in as their everyday first baseman and plays very well. 743 OPS, 258 average, 21 homers, that's a career high. 30 doubles, that's a career high. 80 runs batted in, that's a career high. So Andrew Vaughn having himself a very solid season. He's also really, really good defensively. That does help his ranking out a little bit. You're thinking to yourself, Josh Naylor, his numbers are better than Andrew Vaughn, but Andrew Vaughn played more, and he also is a better defender than Josh Naylor, so that's why he ends up right here at number 14. And coming in at number 13, Seattle Mariners' Ty France. Ty France was an all-star in 2022. He was a borderline top 5 first baseman in the league in 2022, but in 2023, Ty France kind of reverts back to just being the average kind of first baseman he is. He played a ton of games, 158 games, 587 at-bats. That does help his ranking a lot. 79 runs, 32 doubles, only 12 home runs, though. That's not exactly what you want to see from a guy who hit 18 and 20 in the previous 2 seasons. 58 runs batted in, that's pretty far from his career low, but the 79 runs scored helps him out. He does strike out 117 times, not great, but he still pulls away with a 250 batting average, 337 on base, 366 slugging, good for a 703 OPS. So, again, Ty France, I think a lot of people, because he didn't have as good of a season as in 2022, a lot of people overreacted to that and really, really think that he is no longer a good first baseman. I still think he's a good first baseman. I think he will bounce back next season. Still only 29 years old. And coming in at number 12, the Boston Red Sox, Tristan Casas. Tristan Casas, 23 years old, and in his second season with the Red Sox, he broke out last year, and he is going to continue building on this. Casas was their second really kind of big name first base prospect. The first guy they had was Bobby Dahlbeck, and Bobby Dahlbeck was a bust. Tristan Casas, their second first base prospect that they bring up, he has not been a bust. Last year, 263 batting average, 367 on base, 490 slugging, good for an 857 OPS, and this is looking to be sustainable because he played in 132 games. He hit 24 home runs, 21 doubles, 70 runs batted in, and 66 runs scored. So a really solid season coming from Tristan Casas, barely missing out on the top 10. And speaking of the top 10, also just barely missing out is the veteran first baseman of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Carlos Santana, or as we know him as a Seattle Mariners fan, Carlos Slamtana. Carlos Santana, he bounced back last season and had a really, really good year with after spending so many years with the Cleveland Guardians, spends a couple years with the Kansas City Royals, Seattle Mariners, goes in 2023, and he splits his time between the Pirates and the Brewers. In its total 2023, 146 games, 550 at-bats. He scored 78 runs. That's the most he scored since 2019. He ends up with 132 hits, again, most since 2019. He goes for 33 doubles, most since 2017. Also hits a triple, the first triple he's hit in 4 years. 23 home runs, most since 2019. 86 runs batted in, most since 2019. And he hits 240, best batting average since, you guessed it, 2019. 318 on base, which is pretty average for him throughout his career, not a high. But here's a number that really pops out. 429 slugging, highest since 2019. And it gives him a 747 OPS, highest since 2019. So Carlos Santana, he had, for basically 3 seasons, regressing. Carlos Santana returned to being a really, really good player last year. He just misses out on the top 10 because, again, the first baseman, the group of first basemen is super, super deep at the top. There's a lot of really, really good first basemen last year who were at the top in those top 10. Carlos Santana barely missing out. Also, his defense, not very good. All right, we are into the top 10, and coming in at number 10, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. of the Toronto Blue Jays. What is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. doing in just at number 10? He has been so good for it feels like so long. I guess it really hasn't been, only 5 years, but Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he had a bit of a down season last year, and he still makes the top 10. That's how good he is. People look at him and say he might have been, he's kind of declining from where he was in 2021 when he was second place MVP. 2023, 78 runs, 30 doubles, 26 home runs, 94 runs batted in, and he hits 264, 345 on base, 444 slugging, and it's still good for a 789 OPS. So obviously that was a bit of a career low season for him, but it was still a really good year. It was still a really good year that we come to expect out of Vladdy Guerrero Jr. I do think he'll bounce back. Amazingly, shockingly, he's still only 24, so he's got a lot of room to continue growing. I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. overall is probably one of the top 5 first basemen in the game, but last season, he is about the 10th best. Also, the defense, again, the defense is not as good as you want to see out of a first baseman, but it's not bad. He's not a terrible defender. Coming in at number 9, we have the Cincinnati Reds rookie first baseman Spencer Steer. Now, Spencer Steer is interesting because he basically played 3 positions last year. He played first base, left field, and third base. Next season, I think he's going to be their left fielder, so he might get to switch it up and move over to a different position for next year in the next year's player rankings. This year, he's going to be the first baseman, and he had a very good season. 156 games, so he played almost every single day, 582 at-bats, 158 hits. That's really, really solid, actually. More than 1 per game. Hits 271 batting average, 356 on base, 464 slugging, and an 820 OPS, 23 homers, and 37 doubles. So really good counting stats, a really good slash line. He played almost every game. He was a very good player. Also, defensively, he's really, really solid. He has a third base background, so he's really good at blocking balls. He is also, able to play the outfield. Most first basemen can't just move over to left field super easily. Spencer Steer can, and that's pretty impressive. So Spencer Steer, number 9, came out of nowhere and had a really good season. Coming in at number 8, the Detroit Tigers first baseman Spencer Torkelson, the 24-year-old in his second season, and after really, really being terrible in 2022, Spencer Torkelson had a really, really good season in 2023. It starts with the consistency. He played pretty much every game. Only missed 3 games, 600 over 600 at bats, and this is what he did with those 606 at bats. He hit 31 homers, 34 doubles. That's good for a 446 slugging. He also hits 233 batting average, but his on base percentage was at 313 because of those 67 walks, 94 runs batted in, 88 runs scored. He's a middle of the order hitter. He is going to be the replacement, the long-term replacement for Miguel Cabrera in Detroit, and the Tigers are loving it. He was once the number 3 overall prospect in baseball, and last year he showed just why that is. He has really good pop. The average is still improving. I think his average will continue to improve as the season goes on, but Spencer Torkelson, really good player. Also, he's young, plays good defense, got all the intangibles are there for him to continue to build on this. Coming in at number 7, we have the Tampa Bay Rays, Yandy Diaz. Yandy Diaz early in the season was being talked about as an MVP candidate, ends up suffering an injury, missing a couple of weeks, but he still had a really, really nice season. He hit 330, 410 on base, 522 slugging. That's good for a 932 OPS, 22 homers, 35 doubles, 95 runs scored, 78 runs batted in, 65 walks. He had a really good season. Yandy Diaz, this is a guy who throughout his career, he's slowly but steadily emerged as one of the best first basemen in the league. I wanted to put him in my top 5, but ultimately, the guys ahead of him, it's hard to argue against. So moving on to number 6, Texas Rangers, Nathaniel Lau. Second straight top 10 season for Nathaniel Lau as a first baseman. He is really breaking out with the Texas Rangers. He played all but 1 game last season, 623 at-bats. He's hitting towards the top of their order day in and day out. 38 doubles, 17 homers, 82 runs batted in. He does strike out 165 times, more than once a game, but it doesn't really affect the slash line. 360 on base, 414 slugging. He had a really good season, and Nathaniel Lau, what's great about him is his consistency. He does not get hurt. He does not make mistakes. He's not going to ever get benched, and he plays good enough defense that he's able to play the entire game every single day. Nathaniel Lau, consistent. He's a durability, workhorse guy, and he puts up good offensive numbers to go along with it. So he's number 6, but coming in at number 5, Christian Walker of the Arizona Diamondbacks. What a season Christian Walker had. 157 games, and in those 157 games, he did not disappoint. 33 home runs, 36 doubles. That was career high in doubles, and 3 away from his career high in homers. 103 runs batted in. That's a new career high as well. 86 runs scored. That ties his career best. 258 batting average, highest in a full season of his career if you take out 2020. 333 on base, again, in a full season. That's his second highest, and a 497 slugging. That is the highest of his career. Good for an 830 OPS, also the highest of his career. So Christian Walker had a really, really good season. He had a career year breaking out into the top 5. Last year, he was a top 10 guy as well. But last season, as a 32-year-old in 2023, he really pulled it off and had a season to remember. But coming in at number 4, we have the St. Louis Cardinals first baseman, Paul Goldschmidt. Now, Paul Goldschmidt, 36-year-old, and it was a kind of a tale of 2 seasons, similar to 2022. In 2022, Goldschmidt was terrible the first half. Then in the second half, he broke out and ended up winning the MVP award. 2023 was the opposite. He was elite in the first half of the season, and then in the second half, he really fell off, but still put up really impressive numbers in 154 games. He ends up with 89 runs scored, 31 doubles, 25 home runs, 80 runs batted in, 87 walks, and a 268 batting average, 363 on base, 447 slugging, good for an 810 OPS. So he still had a really, really nice season, got a lot of hits. He hit for power. He plays good defense, really good defense. Paul Goldschmidt's still a really good first baseman. I think next season he will be just as good. And this marks, he's probably been in the top 10 for first baseman every season since ever, for all time. Paul Goldschmidt, really good. Ever since he broke into the league, he's been one of the best first basemen that has been in the league. But he's not as good as number 3, the polar bear, Pete Alonso. 2023, Pete Alonso had himself another really good season. You wouldn't have realized this because it was not really being talked about. Pete Alonso, 46 home runs, only had 21 doubles, so a lot of those doubles kind of maybe turned into home runs. Batting average was a career low of 217, but I don't even care because he had 504 slugging, 318 on base, 822 OPS, so he still has a really good OPS despite the bad batting average. 118 runs batted in, 92 runs scored in 154 games. He was the leader of the Mets offensively. I don't think he made the All-Star team, which is impressive to hit 46 home runs and not be an All-Star. Pete Alonso, yeah, just a really, really good player. A really, really, overall, he has all the tools. The defense, good. Power, good. He hits for average. Up until this season, he's been really good at hitting for average. And again, 29 years old. He's in the very prime of his career. He's going to be able to keep this up for at least a couple more seasons. And now we move to number 2, Freddie Freeman of the Los Angeles Dodgers. This was incredibly close between number 2 and number 1. If you know baseball at all, you definitely know who's going to be number 1. I was really tempted to put Freddie Freeman at number 1, but you'll see why I couldn't in an instant. But Freddie Freeman, he still had an insanely good season. 59 doubles. That's the most in the MLB. 29 home runs, still very good. I mean, the fact that he was able to basically hit, what is that? 90 extra base hits is incredible. 90 extra base hits is more than most guys. That may have led the league. I'm not sure if it did or not. But 161 games, so he plays pretty much every single game except for one. 637 at-bats, most out of any first baseman. And his batting average, 331. Slugging, 567. That's the highest it's been since 2020. The highest it's been in a full season since 2017. 410 on base percentage. Again, highest since 2020. Highest it's been in a full season ever. 977 OPS. Again, highest since 2020. Highest in a full season since 2017. I mean, Freddie Freeman, as a 34-year-old on a second team, on a new team, just gets better and better. He is aging like fine wine because he is a pure hitter, and he might be the best pure hitter in the entire game of baseball. When you see a guy who's hitting 330 batting average, 410 on base, 560 slugging, and he's consistently putting up 300, 400, 500 slash lines throughout his career, he's a really good player, and he may be the best pure hitter in baseball. He's also still really good defensively. He's not as good before defensively. He's obviously not winning Gold Glove awards anymore, but he's still pretty darn good with the glove. He won his last Gold Glove award was not since 2018, but he's still pretty darn good with the glove over there. He holds down first base really well for the Dodgers, but here's the guy at number 1. I could not put this guy below Freddie Freeman. For as good as Freddie Freeman was, I think Matt Olson was just slightly better. Matt Olson of the Atlanta Braves, number 1 first baseman in 2023. He's been a top 10 guy for quite some time now, and he finally gets to the top as the number 1 first baseman in 2023. 162 games. He played every single game. By the way, that's 2 seasons in a row he's played in every single game. That's really, really impressive and incredible durability. He goes for 127 runs scored, career high. He hits 172 hits, career high. He goes for 367 total bases, career high. 27 doubles, not a career high, but 54 home runs. 54 home runs. He led the league in home runs. And that is why, it's hard for me to put a guy who hit, Freddie Freeman hit 330 and led the league in doubles. Matt Olson hit 280, but he led the league with 54 home runs. And again, his slash line still ends up being actually better than Freddie Freeman because 389 on base and a 604 slugging, the highest in his career since 2017 when he only played 59 games. 993 OPS, again, highest he's played in any full season, and a 993 OPS, that's dangerously close to the 1000 OPS that every player wants to get to at some point in their careers. Matt Olson, I thought he should have been the runner-up to the MVP award. He was just that good last season, and again, similar to Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson also, but not only does he have an elite bat at first base, he also has a really, really good glove at first base. He is the type of guy who is able to put up incredible offensive stats and be one of the best defenders at his position. He won his last Gold Glove in 2019, so he's not as good as he was when he was with the A's, but still, for a guy who's only 29, he feels like he's been around forever. He's still only 29. He has a really good glove defensively, and he played out of his mind. He has really good pop out of that bat, and he ends up hitting for a 283 batting average, which is his career high. So he sets his career high in batting average and a career high in home runs. That is the type of thing that gets you to be number 1 on my rankings. So without further ado, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you agree, comment down below. If you disagree, again, comment down below. I love seeing your guys' comments. I love reading them. I love responding to them if it's not hateful or mean comments. I know some people have pleasure in calling people idiots. I don't like getting called idiots. If you disagree, tell me why respectfully. And again, like I said at a different point in this video, a lot of my rankings has to do with production. I'm not looking here to tell you which guy has the highest expected OPS plus in whatever ballpark. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm not looking at the advanced metrics. I'm not putting a whole lot of weight into slash line. Slash line matters, but slash line doesn't matter to me as much as overall production. If you want to see video of talent, I'm going to make those videos later on. As far as going into the 2023 season, I will give my rankings for each position based off of just talent level overall. This is based off of how good were they in 2023, and I'm ranking it mostly based off of production. So that's why a guy who plays 50 games and hits 300 is probably going to be ranked below a guy who plays 150 games and hits 230, because he played triple the games. So overall, he produced more for his team. With all that being said, if you disagree with my philosophy, again, comment down below. We can have that conversation in the comments. But I'm telling you guys, this is my rankings of most production, and statistically, not based off the advanced stuff, statistically speaking, who was the best this year? This year, I think it was Matt Olson, Freddie Freeman number 2. We'll recap the rest of the top 5. So Matt Olson number 1, Freddie Freeman number 2, Pete Alonso number 3, Paul Goldschmidt number 4, and Christian Walker number 5. The rest of the top 10, Nathaniel Lau, Yandy Diaz, Spencer Torkelson, Spencer Steer, and Vladdy Guerrero Jr. And just missing out on the top 10 is the veteran Carlos Santana and the rookie Tristan Casas. There you go, guys. That is my 2023 first base rankings. Check in tomorrow for my second base rankings, and we'll see who ends up being number 1 there. Is it going to be Mookie Betts? Is it going to be Jose Altuve? I couldn't tell you because I haven't made him yet. But check in tomorrow, and you'll see that video right away.